Hello, I'm Reese.
Welcome to the Dead Spot Cinema Club, the podcast where we guide each other through cinematic journeys we should have taken a long time ago. We find movies that one of us really has no excuse not to have seen by now, and we make them watch, critique, and review some of our most beloved blockbusters.
So please join me, Mark, Andy, and Amy as we watch Scream.
What's your favorite scary movie? You have to have a favorite. What comes to mind?
I have got a quite extensive experience of it. I've seen it many, many times, more times than I should have. I love it. I'm obsessed with it. Back in 2001, 2003, the Scary Movies came out and the first one parodied it. That was my first experience of it, which, if you ask a horror purist, they will hate that. They do not like it when your first experience of the parody. But it got me into it. It got me to love The Mask, and then I think in my late teens I first saw Scream 1, and by that time 4 of them were out. So I just kept rewatching, and every few years they bring out another banger, and I keep watching. So I'm obsessed with these movies. Absolute favorite franchise.
I have seen it, but it was a long time ago, like very shortly after it was released. So faded memories of it. I remember it being a really big deal when it came out. I think that all the Halloween surrounding it, people were wearing the mask. I remember one that had like the fake blood you could pump underneath it, and it like made like a blood splatter effect. That was everywhere when I was like 8 or 9. Don't think I saw it straight away. I remember watching it on like VHS, rented from Blockbuster, you know, typical sleepover style. Yeah, but most of my memories, to be honest, are of Scary Movie, because I watched that quite a few times as well. I do remember some plot points and some big scenes from it. So
2 quiet members of the cast, Andy and Amy. I'm presuming that means not as much experience.
I've never seen it. Never even seen, as you've all mentioned, what it's called? I've forgotten the one that you just mentioned. What's it called? Parody? Yeah, that one. That seemed too scary for me, not gonna lie.
Okay, what about you, Andy?
I've never seen Scream, but I have seen Scary Movie 1 and 2. I can only assume it heavily takes from the film. I mean, I know a couple of other references on it from other films, but the rest, I assume, is more or less from the film, so I don't know. I'm excited to find out.
Amy's got 0 experience here. From what little you've gathered, tell us what you think you're in for.
So Mark's already mentioned the masks at Halloween, which is the main thing that I know from this. What I remember seeing again around that kind of age is my only. So I know that he's in it somewhere. I assume he's, the guy doing the killing.
Can you describe the mask?
It's just white and long, almost like the painting, but I don't remember the name of that either.
Have a guess.
Painful Scream. Yeah, that one. And I remember a black hood around the top of it. I assume someone's getting murdered, maybe multiple people. One of them's going to be young, probably a girl. It's going to be like Scooby-Doo stuff where people are going to split up and look for things. And I think there'll be lots of like tropes that I've probably seen referenced in cartoons or whatever, but I won't know them until I actually watch the film to go, oh yeah, I've seen that mentioned at XYZ.
Okay, Andy, you've got experience just from the parodies.
I assume Scary Movie 1 was parodying it, but I'm assuming there's going to be a lot less dick jokes in it than in Scary Movie 1. Who knows? Will a guy get killed by a dick through the brain? So I'm assuming that won't happen. See, the only thing I know, the phone calls coming from somewhere particular. I don't want to say anything.
Nice. Okay, yeah. Everyone will know what you're talking about, but Amy, I love that.
Yeah, I know that one of the Friends cast is in it, or in one of the sequels maybe, and supposedly with a terrible haircut.
It's 1996, mate. Let's not judge. We all had terrible haircuts.
Yeah.
Okay, some decent predictions there. And I guess, Mark, you're in kind of a bit of a middle ground here, because you've seen it. So how about some spoiler-free opinions of it for the guys that are going to see it?
yeah, I'm not really a huge horror fan anyway, so I only really ever watched horrors when we were doing like sleepovers in like pre-teens, early teens. It's one of the more iconic ones. This one struck me as like a true sort of slasher. A lot of things are stuck with me, just the way certain people are killed and certain scenes that would probably just be completely different now if I watched them as an adult, but at the time it was eye-opening and iconic. My memory has been clouded a lot by the parodies that I've seen more recently, so I don't know what's true and what's not anymore. Like, did he get killed by a dick? Who knows? I'll have to rewatch it and find out.
Here's how we play.
So before we go off and watch this, I am so protective of this movie. It's important to understand the context of what the horror scene was like and what this movie wanted to achieve. There was a big come down of the horror scene. We'd had the big names like the Jasons, the Freddys, like Michael Myers. Everything was winding down towards the late 80s, early 90s. We had Child's Play 2 around 1992. And apart from that, everything was pretty quiet on the horror scene, from like the big names that we all know and love, the masked killers. Everything was a bit stale. Everything that tried to make a bit of an entry into the scene just didn't find legs. Scream came in and it just wanted to change the layout. It wanted to change the horror scene. They wanted to go for something different. And it was about 4 years after there was a big horror hit. Leading on from that, the landscape was changed entirely as a result of what Scream managed to do. It accomplished more than it did in the hour and 50 that it runs for. And I'm very grateful to it because it's made a lot of films I love have come from it. So please treat it nicely when you go and see it.
So are you trying to tell me people getting bored of like Friday the 13th Part 8 or whatever the hell it went up to?
For some reason, Nightmare on Elm Street, Part 7 was just not hitting home like it used to. So they took the same guy and they said, hey Wes, make something fresh for us. They took a gamble on a new writer, and there are bits in the script where Kevin Williamson would have written a scene. It would just say, and Wes will make it scary. Like, that's how much they just wanted to play with the genre. So yeah, going into it, I think that's important. If you guys got anything when you're going in fresh, let's start with Amy, who's totally a Scream virgin. Is there anything you think you're going to see? Like, any predictions? Like, tell me what you think's going to happen. Like, some specifics, and then we will judge you on.
Okay. I assume I'm going to get a lot of jump scares. I jump scare at the smallest thing. So if I'm not looking from behind my knees by the end of it, we've done pretty well. I'm hoping that having to make notes is going to help me.
Stay engaged. Yeah.
There's just going to be a lot of dead people, but not like
Not like the Sixth Sense.
I'm not seeing Sixth Sense.
Oh yeah.
I assume someone's gonna have escaped. There were like a main person. Someone. When you mentioned that phone call, I feel like I've heard it's coming from inside the house, and that might be related to this film.
Well, my prediction will be that it's going to be like one of those 80s films which everyone said was really scary at the time, and then you look at it and think, what are they talking about? You're going to look at this and think, Reese, why do you love this so much? It's blatantly Phil, the gardener that's going on murdering everyone. You can see his name tag under his mask. Well, my actual prediction will be a bunch of teens are going to die. Quite low budget, so I reckon we'll have like maybe 2 or at most 3 different houses. Main cast will be like, ooh, who did it? And they'll probably blame 2 people that are wrong. They'll even shoot the guy, but then he'll still disappear, and they'll be like, how is he gone? I shot him. And then at the end, he'll still just escape. One of the main characters gets framed for it.
Any final thoughts before we go off and we watch Scream 1996 and make rigorous notes?
I was just going to say, Reese, have you got any warnings for people watching it for the first time?
Considering it's best part of 30 years old, I wouldn't say the content or like the language has aged much. I think anything that was unacceptable in their use is probably framed to be unacceptable then. So I don't think there's a big problem with it having aged. There's going to be some familiar faces there, and that's going to age it for you. Like, that's what's going to age it, is that there's familiar faces. You're going to be like, oh, that guy is 30 years older. Yeah, just have fun with it. Go off and watch Scream 1996. So remember your pen and paper and have a great time. We'll see you later, guys.
Yeah. So, Andy and Amy, you've now watched Scream. How was it?
The first note I made was hate you all.
Not a horror fan.
That was as it was like starting. I was like, gotta write this down. This is the most important thing.
I quite enjoyed it. I really liked it, and I want to see the second one.
Hell yes. Oh, I'm so proud of you, Andy.
So, going in, what did you expect it was?
I didn't expect it to go so hard at the start as it did. It just went in. And at one point, I remember writing down, is it just this forever? Because it was just bam, 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 constantly.
I rewatched this when you guys watched it, and every time I rewatch it, I forget how intense that opening scene is.
In fact, I think after that scene ended, I had to take like a 5-minute pause just to gather my thoughts and just like take some deep breaths because it was intense.
Now, I can't remember what the opening scene is. Can you remind me?
Well, before we get to the opening scene, that intro
You mean the
with the
title?
it's just I've seen posters, I've seen the DVD, and the font used for the title. It's got nothing to do with anything. It's not scary. It was just it just really threw me.
It's
It was just like you wouldn't steal a car, wasn't it?
Oh god.
scary if you're a pirate of DVDs.
I don't know which came first. Those adverts or Scream. 96, probably Scream.
Yeah, someone stole from someone.
But yeah, definitely because it's a bit of a hard open, this one, because there's no opening credits or anything. It's just title screen
Yeah.
and go. So it is a bit of a cold start.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a rough one. So can we refresh Mark's
Yeah.
memory? Because obviously he's seen it once a long time ago.
So it,
How
I only
how
remember
does this
key
film
moments.
start?
so it opens on your classic house that I would never move into because it's right next to dense woods. It just backs onto a forest, a misty forest with a cornfield beside it, which just screamed, someone's going to get murdered here. And the phone rings and she answers the phone, which is another thing I'd never do. I don't know if that's the millennial in me not wanting to pick up a phone at any point.
And there's no caller ID at all. You can't even pretend it's someone you know.
Drew Barrymore just talks way too much. She's just flirting with this rando on the phone.
Do you have a boyfriend?
Even when he gets a little bit stabby, she's still a little bit into it.
Yeah.
I told you not to hang up on me.
So it opens on Drew Barrymore, and she's, as they've said, in this big house on her own, and the phone rings, she answers it.
I think at one point he asks her name and she gives him her name. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess they just weren't as savvy with that kind of thing. Like, I don't know. It's still landlines, and people aren't really aware of safety over the phone. It's not a threat at this point, I guess. I don't know. It's still strange as knowing your name. Before the internet got wild, was it a bad thing for people to know your name and address that much? Like, they couldn't do much with it, could they? It gets a bit intense then, right?
Then she mentions a boyfriend that she didn't have to begin with when she gets a little bit scared.
His name wouldn't be Steve, would it?
And that's when I wrote down, what happened to Steve? Steve isn't doing good. Steve's dead.
So you had an inkling about that already.
Steve's dead. Can't look. It was just straight off there. Again with the misty woods. It's just tied to a chair in the back.
Turn on your patio lights, and he's just sat there, dripping in blood, tied to a chair, and she's looking out of her back door, and she sees her boyfriend.
Well, to be fair, he does quiz her on scary movies first.
Oh, yeah, we
she
missed that.
fails.
Iconic. What's your favourite scary movie line? So that's from this. Is that something you'd heard before?
No?
No.
No. See, that's like on T-shirts. That's like the one thing that Scream is like probably famous for among people that haven't even seen it, is that line.
But he was good at reviewing films and the details. Because like the question that she gets wrong was like, who's the villain in like Friday the 13th? She screams Jason, but like Jason's not really in it. It's his ma.
Yeah.
Then you should know Jason's mother, Mrs. Voorhees, was the original killer. Jason didn't show up until the sequel.
Some good shit. Some good shit.
Yeah.
I think it's a sign of what the film's got to come.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, with like references to other horrors.
Oh yeah,
Well-
there were so many horrors named.
And that's where I think earlier I was talking about why Scream is unique and what it was trying to do different. This is probably one of the first times you'll find an example of a horror film in which horror films exist.
But it makes sense in the story, though. You know, spoiler alert. Woo, because we're going to talk about it. The whole premise is that they got their ideas from scary movies, so name dropping them just makes sense. In
Yeah.
the film.
Definitely. I think that's what they wanted to do different, was because before this you'd watch horror film and you wouldn't be able to relate to the characters too much because they would do the stupid thing. Those rules that get talked about as to what to not do in a horror film, like they would just happen and you'd be screaming to yourself like, why are you going through that door? Why are you doing this? I think Scream was an attempt to be like, well, these guys have seen those movies. They're going to try not to do those things.
I mean, there's definitely times when those things still happen. And I was good, you know better than this.
When we get to the end, we'll probably realise that the fate of those that follow the rules is different from those that don't. So that all leads to a big chase through the house,
Yeah.
and do we see the killer? We see the mask in this
do.
scene.
You don't see who it is, but you see the mask get taken off, and it's so rubbery. It's just like, what the fuck is
So he chases her through the house, stabs her up. We see the mask. Was the mask familiar to both of you? Was
Yeah.
it what you had
Yeah.
seen before that you
Yeah.
those was coming? Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So there was that.
I mean, it was hard to live through the 90s without seeing that
Yeah.
mask somewhere.
Yeah, that's fair.
Most haunting bits for me is when I think he must have like crushed her voice box or something because he strangled her, and the parents are right there and they can't hear her, even though she's trying to scream as loud as she can, and that was just terrifying. That was.
Yeah, it's rough. Yeah, you don't get that family impact a lot in horror films or in films in general, do you? You get like the funeral scene sometimes, maybe where they're affected by the death, but like that moment where the parents could have helped and she can't scream for them because her voice box is crushed. Oh, and she's within like 5 meters of him. That's tough, isn't it?
I think that was where I wrote down, never leave my children alone ever again.
Ghostface, he goes for a big stab. She pulls his mask off, and then we get a cut to Drew Barrymore's face, and we see a glimpse of a bit of recognition. Like, did you clock that?
Oh no.
So we kind of see her recognize the killer a little bit, and then it's like literally a split second on screen. Cut to the parents, they discover the body. Thoughts on that bit at the end?
Yeah, like, why did he hang her up in the tree? Was it purely just because that's kind of what they do in horror films, or was he sending a message to the family? The motive is so murky, and I don't get why he did that as opposed to just like leaving her somewhere else. I don't know why specifically hang her up in the tree. The person that it is doesn't seem strong enough to be able to do that. But it just seems a bit weird.
Even though there was 2 of them, spoilers. Do you think they could have managed it?
But at the time, there couldn't have been because Shaggy was
Shaggy.
with his girlfriend all night.
Shaggy. I forget that he's Shaggy sometimes. So, Mark, I don't know if you remember, Matthew Lillard is in this.
Yeah, I got reminded. Yeah,
After my 5-minute break to compose myself, we cut then to forgotten. I'm not good with people's names. Main girl.
Sydney Campbell. Sydney Prescott, sorry. Sydney Prescott,
Yeah.
I get those confused because it's Nev Campbell, the actress.
Sydney, that was it. We cut to her in a bedroom that's not been decorated since maybe she was about 7. And you open with her dad saying that he's away for the weekend, which of course he is. That's like a very cliche. You're going to be all by yourself now.
no
You'll
parties.
be married. And then we get introduced to her boyfriend.
Billy
Billy
Loomis.
From the get-go, I call an absolute weirdo.
He's got a unique look, doesn't he? So he was cast, obviously because he did well in his audition and he's a good psycho.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Also, because of how much he looked similar to Johnny Depp in Nightmare on Elm Street. He's got that kind of gaunt look, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And Wes Craven, same director, so he had a hand in casting as well.
Weird name though, Skeet.
Means something else nowadays.
When we get introduced to Billy, he's trying to get on with his girlfriend pretty much, and she's not having any of it. My note is Billy the murderer or just horny? Was he horny after murder?
Ooh,
That's what my note says.
nice. Thoughts on Billy at the beginning then, Amy?
I remember thinking, was he there just as an alibi? That was my kind of first thought. I had like my Agatha Christie head on, and I was like, okay, you're going to solve this. This will be easy. He was just being weird about, like, I've just watched some horrors, and now he felt like being romantic, and I was like, are you okay?
He says that he's just watched The Exorcist, but it was on TV, so they cut out all the good parts. So he thought he'd come and see her instead. So yeah, a bit of a look into his psyche, I think,
Yeah.
which he considers the good part. So there's some bits in The Exorcist where the possessed little girl like masturbates with a crucifix and things like that. So those would have been cut out, and I guess that's what old Billy wanted to see.
Guess those three are watching The Exorcist at some point.
It's trash, mate. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
It's school the next day then, isn't it?
Yeah.
After she tells him to fuck off, pretty much. She's not in the mood.
This is like the fallout from the murder now, isn't it? Like people at school are finding out.
And I was just really confused to why it was like the entire school was going to get investigated one by one for something that didn't happen at school.
That is the first time I've thought about that, Amy.
Yes, every single person separately. That'll be easy.
In this massive, massive school.
And there's like 4 police officers.
And one of them is a child.
Yeah, the worst.
Oh, he's the worst police officer in the world.
Do you not like
I
Dewey?
mean, I think he's a good person, but he should not be in the police force.
I don't know if you remember Dewey, Mark. So Dewey's our main little police deputy and brother of one of the main characters, isn't he? He blends very seamlessly for me me with my memory of Doofy from the Scary Movie franchise. And I find it very hard to remember which is which.
It
Even
was
though
so
one is-
hard
Yeah.
keeping Scary Movie out of my head when he came on screen. I was like, no. I thought they were taking the piss with this,
Yeah.
but they really didn't.
Did you remember who the killer was in Scary Movie?
Yes.
So you
And
remembered
that
it was
skewed
Doofy.
my
sort of.
mind.
It
Ah.
fucks with you, doesn't it? And in Scary Movie, Doofy and the anchor woman, they're like in cahoots, aren't they? And I guess, is that what you then expect?
And what about Deputy Dewey here? Maybe he's the killer.
All throughout the film, there's so many things pointing it to being him because he's so bad at his job. I mean, it's like, are you incompetent on purpose? Is this just an act? But
Later on, where he got beer for them, and I'm like, you're a cop? They're in school? You know they're in school?
It's like the Hanlon's razor, isn't it? Never attribute to malice. That can be explained by ignorance. It's like, is he dumb or is he being evil? It's
Yeah.
hard to...
Bro, 7 films in, still don't know. He was under his sister's thumb a little bit.
he was belittled by everyone, so I just thought maybe he's just snapped and just wants to kill everyone because of that.
Sorry, Deputy Dewey boy, but we're ready to go now.
So this is where we meet Stu for the first time, and I did write down, ha 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 ha, Shaggy. The rest of it, I think I've referred to him as Shaggy.
No.
So I've got a note here saying this is the most unlikable group of friends I've ever met. I don't care if they all die.
Fucking clueless. I mean, they're interrogating the entire school.
There was a lot of what I felt were like false sense of security. So she'd open a cupboard door and there'd be like off music, but then nothing would be there. And I was like, okay, is that going to come back into it? And then her phone rings and I'm like, oh, this is going to be him. And it wasn't him. It was him next time. And we were right back to trying to get murdered again. I wrote down, I thought I'd have more time to chill.
I did like that Sydney had a very different approach to the phone call than Drew Barrymore did. She was not taking any shit.
No,
and
she
had
just
no
tries to
fear
close
about
him
it.
off, doesn't she?
But then, and I don't understand, this is the bit where I was like, what are you doing? Where she knows someone was murdered less than 24 hours ago. Someone's phoning her saying saying I'm outside. She just goes and opens her front door. And I'm like, so like the main thing that you don't do is someone says, hey, I'm a murderer, I'm outside. I'll go, oh sure, I'll just go have a little.
Yeah. For me, it's when she goes around locking the doors and locking the windows. Like, why are they not already locked? You're inside on your own. Why are you now going around locking things?
And then she puts the chain on her door, and that was just a big mistake on her part. Couldn't open it again
When she was talking to him on the phone, she was criticising horror films, saying like, oh, why do they always run upstairs when they know they can't escape? And kind of like foreshadowing her own goddamn decisions.
Some stupid killer stalking some big-breasted girl who can't act. She's always running up the stairs when she should be going out the front door.
He chases her around. She manages to like barricade herself in her room. Then she calls them using the internet.
She
I just
emails the
saw it.
police, doesn't she?
So let's talk about her barricading herself in her room first. What is that layout of the doors? She closes her bedroom door, then opens her closet door, and it somehow makes her bedroom door impossible to open because it's like locked into it. Like, so the set designers had a vision for that,
Yeah.
and it didn't exist in the real world. They had to make that, even though that's not a layout that exists in real houses. They made
Of
that.
course not, it's a fucking fire risk.
I don't know
Murder
why
proof
that
house.
decision was made. Whether it was just to give her a function, to give her a bit more time in the room, to email 911.
On a 56k dial.
Sydney starts getting suspicious of Billy because he comes up just as the killer leaves, and a phone just falls off him. Which in 1996, it's suspicious to have a phone.
Good.
That's literally the only evidence he has a phone.
He's a wrong'un.
Is having a phone classed as evidence, really?
I was confused when they were at the police station with all the Dunkin' Donuts wrappers. At one point, Billy went past her. And he was glaring at her, and I'm like, "What? Are you angry about that she's caught you out? Are you angry that she?" I just didn't understand why he was just obviously like staring at her as he was kind of getting.
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? First of all, he knows he's actually the murderer, but for some reason, he's also decided to be there at the most incriminating time possible with a phone. Then he's also making her know he's mad that she's accused him. But like anyone in that position would know, like, oh, I know this looks bad. I'm gonna have to go and speak to the police.
Yeah.
It's a weird play from someone who is guilty guilty.
We go back because I've written this is where Courtney Cox and David Arquette met, because she was saying people have a right to know what happened, and I was like, why? Is this just like an American thing? But like, I don't think anyone needs to know what
People love to say that in American films, don't they? They love to say we have a right to know.
I've got a note here saying Courtney Cox is a bitch, but maybe the hero?
She's probably one of the big names in this, but the only thing she was known for was Friends, and she was obsessed with the idea of like not being typecast as like the nice girl. So she actually approached the production company for this and was like, I want to play a bitch. So yeah, she's meant to be very dislikable. I think she does a good job of it, to be fair.
Yeah.
Almost effortless.
Back at the school, this is where Courtney Cox says that she doesn't think it was the guy that she had put away for her mum's murder.
Cotton Weary.
And yeah, so that's why I wrote down, did the mum have an affair? And then I questioned if her dad, and I said, is dad Scream?
You're still convinced he's called Scream. This is where we find out about Cotton Weary and a little bit about Sydney's mum, isn't it? So we find out that Cotton Weary's been put away for raping and killing Sydney's mum, and was put away by evidence Sydney gave, I believe.
Yes.
I've got a note here. This must have been when Billy was talking to her, and it says Billy needs to calm down. Fucking horny monster. She hasn't been the same since her mother's death. What a cunt.
Yeah, and I think at that same time I wrote, sorry, she isn't turned on right now. She was almost murdered.
Good points. Good points all around.
Teens in this are absolute. They're just terrible people. They run around knowing that she was just killed by someone with this mask on. Someone was killed with this mask on, and they just run around with it on. Like, isn't this hilarious?
There were two teens running around with a mask on. I really like that. Like when you figure out there were two murderers. Yeah.
Bro, if you ever watch this again, you're gonna kick yourself with how obvious it is who the two murderers are. When you watch it again, it's like, oh my god, they're basically whispering to each other, shall we kill her? Like in plain sight.
I think that's the toilet scene. Bitchy girls just saying it was just for attention.
And she's in the toilet, isn't she? So Sydney's in the toilet. She overhears them saying that they think she's faking it.
Yeah, they leave. She hears her name being whispered and doesn't leave. She starts to be like, hello, is anyone there? And someone was there, yeah. And then for the rest of the film, I was just trying to look at people's shoes.
We see that Ghostface's boots under the cubicle, don't we?
But then for the rest of the film, you don't see anyone's shoes.
Who's the next murder? I genuinely can't remember.
Principal's the next one, which stopped my theory that it was him.
Oh, but also, who is that quick? Because they knock on the door, disappear twice, and then he's inside the office. Whichever one it is a fucking aff to be able to do that. No, he just broke my immersion. He's not supernatural. He's just a stab boy.
I don't know. See, I feel, even though this is a very real film, like it's real life, there's no supernatural thing framed in it. I have this headcanon that whoever is manifesting Ghostface and wearing that mask at the time does go a little bit just like, it's almost like a mask type thing where they become a little bit like him and get these sort of supernatural abilities, because no matter who is wearing the mask at the time, because we know sometimes when it's Billy and when it's Stu, they act the same. They're always a bit clumsy, they always run the same, they always have the same sort of speed, and they're always quite ferocious with the way they do things, and it's never quite exactly human. It can always be characterized by Ghostface. It's never like, oh, that's Billy and that's Stu. I don't think I'm right, but it fits my theory.
So it's like The Mask, where when you're wearing the mask, you get the mask's powers.
Yeah, but in this one, you just get a little bit clumsy and a bit sarky.
And then we're introduced to my next suspect, which obviously is the guy that works there who knows everything about horror. Yeah. And I've put, if he is the killer, people need to be nicer to him, because they were just, this entire film, they were not good people to him.
He's the kind of nerdy character. He's the one that knows about all the law and the rules that we need to be following, isn't he? Yeah. Randy it is, isn't it? In my opinion, Randy is meant to be us. He's the one that's kind of watching, being like, no, don't do that, you're gonna get killed. The first thing you see happen to Randy is Stu and Billy kind of roughhouse him a little bit, don't they? And they kind of make fun of him for how much he knows. For me, that's kind of how Stu and Billy are toying with us, the viewer, being like, you don't know shit. You think you're watching this thinking you know a horror, but we're playing you. It's both of us and you're not going to work it out.
Maybe your movie freaked mind lost its reality button. You ever think of that?
Then it's party time in a classic murder house, because there's about 10,000 doors and windows and rooms that go into other rooms that you can get lost in and hide behind.
We're in the party, and just like every party, there's one room where 10 guys are just watching a horror film.
And then Nipples goes down to the garage.
Tatum is Shaggy's girlfriend.
She goes to the garage to get some beer. but fuck me, it's cold in there because all of a sudden her nipples are like 2 inches long.
Wouldn't know, mate. That's not where I look when I'm watching films.
I wasn't looking, but
Your
it
wife's
just
right
became
here, buddy.
so obvious. Even Amy pointed it out.
And then she does the thing where she accidentally opens the garage door, and I kind of think, is this, again, a foreshadowing of some sort? And then the door locks behind her, and she doesn't realise.
This is where we actually hear the name Ghostface for the first time.
Well, hell yeah, not Scream.
Not Scream.
Mr.
Much to
Scream.
Amy's.
Professor
They
Scream.
do call him Mr. Ghostface.
So who do we hear it from? Do you remember?
When she turns around and he's there, she thinks it's someone dicking about, calls him Mr. Ghostface.
Oh, you want to play Psycho Killer? Can I be the helpless victim? Okay, let's see. No, please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface. I want to be in the sequel.
He doesn't act like he has done previously, because so he only actually like slices her arm a little bit, and then she starts freaking out, because who can blame her? It's only after she actually throws a couple of bottles of beer and actually hurts him that he actually full on goes for it.
Yeah, I think you're right. He needed to be pushed over the edge a little bit.
And even then, he didn't physically kill her himself. Yeah, she tries to escape through a cat flap
Through
because
a
she's the
cat.
smartest girl in town.
This is actually one I remember the most for some reason. Like,
I love this film,
says-
but that bit is too dumb for even me to tolerate. Like, it's a fucking cat flap.
See, when people say Scream, this is what I remember. So this is my memory of Scream. Oh yeah, when the girl tries to get through the cat flap and gets like almost guillotined. And then I remember everyone running out the party and seeing it just dangling.
Courtney Cox goes in and hides the camera, and they say there's a 30-second delay on it, and I said, is that important? Then Sydney sleeps with Billy, and I've said, she's going to die now, because that was one of them.
I also noted, murder does not stop the power of horny teens.
Everyone runs out, and I just put, normal people don't act like this. It's like, oh, they found blah blah's murdered, and everyone just went, yeah, let's go look.
I don't know, is that how people would respond? A lot of teens caught up in the hysteria of murders. We've just seen them getting dressed up as the murderer. We've just found out the murders happened. There's a bit of fanfare around it.
Still not a great reaction, though. Hey,
It's
the
not great.
principal's been hung up at the football field. Let's go see.
You do remember what it's like to be in school, don't you? Remember when that teacher was lifting a car in the car park and everyone cancelled the last class of the day to go on this guy like deadlift car.
Oh yeah.
Where the
Kids are
fuck did
stupid,
you
aren't they?
go? The X-Men Academy?
It was a food, like it was a really fat food tech that he just deadlifted a car.
It was a mini, to
Yeah.
be clear.
Oh, what a
but
pussy.
Still impressive.
And then we cut back to Sydney and Billy, and they've done it, they're getting dressed, and then she starts asking him really awkward questions that you wouldn't ask someone alone with them who you think might have tried to kill you at some point. It's just like very, I don't know, just questions that could get you in a lot of trouble if he doesn't want you to tell the answers.
Oh, like she starts picking holes in his
Yeah.
alibi and stuff, doesn't she? Like just post-coitus. Like, oh, by the way, it didn't really make sense. You said that, yeah.
She's got a clear head now. She's
Okay.
it's like, oh wait a minute, who did you phone in the police station?
Who'd you call?
What?
I don't know. When you're arrested, you're allowed one phone call. Who'd you call?
You don't still think it was me, do you?
If it were you, it'd be a very clever way to throw me off track.
And then
But then
Billy gets stabbed.
Oh shit! Yeah, it starts to unravel now,
Yeah,
then, doesn't
all
it? This
sorts
is
of stuff.
when it's really starting to. So obviously, this is kind of the big finale to the film, isn't it? Do you feel like it's been a long time, or for me, this always comes really quickly?
it did feel sudden to me.
It's like there's a couple of murders, and then boom, we're in the final. Maybe because the party scene lasts quite a while, and it's sort of a close to that. But it's like that's a huge scene, that party scene, isn't it? Leads pretty seamlessly into this. For me, this always happens really early in the film. Like, damn, this is the last act.
Yeah. And then that's when I was certain it must be Shaggy because he left to go to the kitchen.
Yeah, I've got the same note. Is Shaggy Ghostface? Is that then she goes out to the van, doesn't she? And that's when the whole 30-second delay.
What do they see? They see Randy on screen.
Yeah, and Ghostface is behind him, and they think he's gonna murder him.
Yeah,
So
and
they
Randy's
come
there
out.
shouting at the TV. He's watching Halloween, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he's shouting, "Look behind you, Jamie! Look behind you!" And fun fact, that actor is called Jamie. And if he looked behind him, he would see Ghostface.
Yeah, and then so they go to try and help him, and then they realise the 30-second delay, and slice.
Nice.
Jamie, look behind you. Look behind you. Jamie, turn around. Oh, God.
And then I think they all kind of gather in the kitchen then, is it? And this is when we get the big reveal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Dun,
at
dun,
this
dun.
point, are we surprised by that? Or do you sort of start to work out it was both of them?
No, I was very surprised by that.
I was surprised by the two because I was sure it was Billy, and then Billy died. I was like, nah, it's Shaggy. And then it's both of them. Who knew?
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? Yeah, as far as
I'm not
motives
blaming
go,
on-
weird one.
You hear that, Stu? I think she wants a motive.
Yeah, but he killed the mum a year ago. Fine. So then he just goes, okay, I'm done for a year. Oh, wait a minute, the itch is back.
And I'm going to blame the daughter for it all, even though
The
she
dad.
literally didn't know what happened.
Is that motive enough for you?
And then they kind of explain what they're going to do, and then they start like stabbing each other.
So they're trying to solidify their alibi a little bit. So they're like, if we stab each other, then it's going to look like they're both innocent when the police come. And for the life of me, I don't know why they don't kill Sydney first. I don't. I just think they get carried away trying to toy with her, and they forget that the killing is a really important part of this plan.
Because they've got
so
Dewey's
that
gun
bit-
at this point, don't they?
So yeah, Shaggy's got Dewey's gun. Billy's got the knife. Billy is having a stab at Shaggy. Yeah, it's a tough scene, that one, isn't it? When they're telling each other to stab themselves. Tell them to go a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right. It's a tough one.
Got a bit weird, a little bit homoerotic to a slight degree. It was really weird.
They got into it a bit, didn't they?
Movies don't create psychos. Feel a little woozy here.
Got into it. And obviously, so Billy really takes it out on Shaggy, doesn't he? Like, Shaggy's in a bad way.
Yeah.
So Shaggy's first, he's got the gun, he's pointing it at Sydney, he's pointing it around, and then he puts the gun down before the big stabbing happens. Did you catch him putting the safety on?
No.
I did not.
He does. He actually consciously puts it on so that later, when it's pointed at him, he knows the safety's on. Billy gives him a good old stabbing, and probably a little bit too much, doesn't he?
Yeah, but I'm not entirely convinced Billy didn't do it on purpose. That Billy didn't want to be the only one that survived. It solidifies his alibi a little bit, doesn't it? Like, well, it couldn't have been me. I was here, so
Yeah, and why would you keep the other guy alive if he's the only person left alive that knows you were involved? Why would you keep him alive? Class acting from Matthew Lillard when he's like, I'm getting woozy here.
So that's when Sydney disappears, isn't it?
Yeah, because the three of them start talking, so she's able to like go off in the background. At one point, she calls them with the voice modulator. This is where I see that Shaggy has the boots on.
Oh, we see the boots, do we? And like after they've stabbed each other and blood's pouring, then you're like, it's him, it's the boots, it's him.
I'm starting to suspect he's the killer.
Then he gets killed by a TV.
He does. The TV falls on him in the most comic fashion possible, doesn't it? And he's just a little shake.
But at this point, Sydney's wearing the Ghostface costume. It's like, why, love? Your DNA is going to be all over that now.
Don't. At the time required to put that on, she was running away for her life. And she's like, oh, for bants. Because no one sees it. It's just her and him. Like, who's that for? She spent like a good 20 seconds getting that on. Getting the voice modulator. Fucking Sydney, bro.
Yeah. It just condemns her. Like, say the police turned up at that point, and they just see her in the costume stabbing a guy to death. Like, it wasn't me. Like, fucking hell.
I just realised by this point we've seen her dad.
Part of the plan, wasn't he? They were going to frame him.
Yeah, because the plan was they're going to frame the dad on the anniversary of his wife's death as the murderer. But that doesn't work because they've already killed some people 2 days prior. They tried to kill Sydney a day prior. So it feels like this plan, which was planned 2 days ago when they kidnapped him, was just done on the fly. It just seems like making shit to piss Sydney off at that point. If it had gone to plan, Sydney would have died the night before. And
Yeah.
It wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, it's like they planned to fail, haven't they? Like, oh, we need to fail to kill her twice and then actually kill her.
And then they kill Billy, stand right next to him. And I wrote down, don't stand next to him. He might still be alive. Told you so.
And then he is. And then, yeah, gunshot to the head.
Yeah.
Boom. Do you remember what Randy said about killing people in horror films? It's part of the message he gets through when he's talking about the rules earlier, the rules of horror films, when he's saying, like, don't say you'll be right back, don't have sex, don't go out on your own. No one's dead until they've been shot in the head. That's one of the rules.
The police have just got there, but it's the morning now.
As opposed to 30 seconds and he sent an email.
They were too busy checking their emails, they weren't on the radio.
Yeah, That
And then that's
was it.
pretty much the end, isn't it?
That's Scream.
Come on, it's your favorite scary movie, remember?
But wait! There's more!
Have we got any notes from pre-watch?
There was one which bugged me during pre-watch, and that was the reference to the calls coming from inside the house. It's not from this fucking movie, bro. It's not.
Yeah, well, I noticed they didn't say that anywhere in the film. So, yeah, what is that from?
It's from When a Stranger Calls, which is from like the 70s. And the intro, like calling a babysitter on the phone and then murdering her, that's kind of like a reference to When a Stranger Calls. But that's where it's from when they're kind of tracing the call. They're like, the call's coming from inside the house. Yeah, it's in that.
No, I thought that was from Scream as well.
No, they do it in Scary Movie. Ghostface is hiding, he's like hiding behind the sofa. And then he goes, the call's coming from inside the house.
Yeah.
Lots of confusion with Scary Movie. The working title of Scream was Scary Movie.
And they say it so many times in the film.
So, based on your opinion of this film before you went into it, how would you rate it now? How did it compare to your expectation?
This is a film where if it wasn't so gory, it'd be a favourite film.
Wow.
I feel like the plot was really good. I just struggled a lot with I don't think there were any jump scares that I can think of, not really. Maybe like one or two, but it was just more like kind of gore, stabby murder thing, and that was what I struggled with. But if it wasn't for that, if you could get that edited out, then yeah, it's definitely a film that I'd watch a lot, just because it was so. It's kind of like I love whodunit mystery films, so it's kind of along that vein.
So you want the PG version?
Yeah.
Would you settle for a PG-13? What are your thoughts, Andy?
I really liked it as well. I really liked the plot. I liked that it referenced other horror films, and I did like how at the very beginning it was so in your face to show that this guy means business. But then as the film progressed, he just got worse and worse. And then I liked it. I just hated Dewey. Most horror films I've seen in the past have been Saw, Hellraiser, Evil Dead, zombie-based one. So it's just very different from what I've seen before, and I quite enjoyed it. So is this more of a slasher than a horror, is it? Or is it?
Yeah, it goes by slasher, but like I said, the time of release was like towards the end of the traditional slasher. It was like things like Halloween and like Nightmare on Elm Street. They'd had their day a little bit. It was identified as a slasher. There were things around this time that would have been classed as slashers as well, but were trying to distance themselves from the horror genre, like Silence of the Lambs and stuff. They weren't calling themselves horrors and slashers, even though break it down and that's what they are. Scream was like, no, we are a slasher. We're just going to change what slashers are and put a bit more like mystery to them, put a bit more teen drama in them, have some characters that you care about, even if that's liking or disliking them. A lot of teen stuff spawned from this, like I Know What You Did Last Summer and stuff like that.
Right out of a horror movie or something.
So, Amy, have you got a favourite moment from the film?
I think I like the end reveal when that's kind of what I can remember the most, when they're in the kitchen and they're all kind of saying why they did it and how they did it and all that. That's definitely my favourite bit, when it all comes together and you can understand what's going on.
It's not quite a Poirot
Yeah.
standing in a nice civilized circle in the billiards room.
But still, they get all the survivors together in a room to figure out.
Yeah, you get the closure.
The ground room.
We're not finished yet.
We'll go through some predictions you had before you saw the film to see how they compare. Amy, you predicted lots of jump scares.
Yeah.
As you said.
No, not as many as I thought there'd be, which made it easier for me to actually watch.
You also predicted a lot of dead people.
Yeah, I was right with that.
Someone will escape death, a main character.
The quintessential final girl is Sydney.
Yeah.
She escaped at the end, so yeah, I guess that's a tick.
And you also predicted his name was Scream.
Yeah, which was correct. So just over 60% accuracy.
Andy, you predicted it would not be scary at all because it is aged.
There were still some scary bits, I'll give it that.
I think with regards to scary, a good measure of this, if this was scary or not, rather than being scared at the time, because it's not really a jump scare type film, is it? It's not like a supernatural movie that wants to like throw a ghost in your face. Were you more vigilant with the locks in your house after watching?
No.
No for you, but Amy's
Right
nodding.
now, I'm facing the back garden with giant doors, and I'm not looking at them.
That to me is the kind of scary it does to me. It's like it enters your life, that kind of scary. Yeah.
I had to open the front door yesterday to look at the snow, and I was like, am I going to get stabbed if I open the front door?
Andy also predicted it was going to be obvious who was the murderer.
I was massively wrong there, so well done, Scream. You beat me there.
Predicted a bunch of teens will die. 2 or at most 3 houses environment.
You were like, it's going to be low budget. They're just going to use the same couple of houses.
I was not necessarily wrong.
You were not far
The
off.
sets were house, school, back to Sydney's house, police station, friend's house, school toilet, they were in a street, then they were in Blockbuster, party house. So there was only actually 7 different locations the entire film.
There's never any moving environments. There's no set pieces. It is just buildings and sets, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like,
Didn't take away from it, so I can't argue with that, but I was right.
Yeah, there's plenty of films coming out now that are set in one location for the whole film, and it depends how it's written and how it's used, doesn't it?
On the topic of location, there's a bit of the credits in like massive writing, when they give thanks and stuff like that. It says, with no thanks whatsoever to the Santa Rosa City School District Governing Board. And that's because all the school scenes were meant to be in Santa Rosa until like days before filming when they cancelled on them. So they had to last minute get agreement from a different school to find the location. So yeah, the location was fucked and their budget wasn't very high to find a new place.
So you also predicted the main cast will blame 2 people and be wrong and shoot the guy. Was that like a no, it's him kind of situation?
That is what I had in mind, but you know what? Maybe I'm just gonna take that back and say I was right.
I mean, they did shoot the guy, and it was 2 people, but.
That's not what I meant, though. Yeah, no.
I think you were getting at they would pick 2 red herrings, weren't you?
Ghostface will escape, and the main character will get framed, almost with a suit.
I mean, she was trying her best.
Yeah, that was all your predictions. So, based on this, would you consider watching more slashers now?
Yes.
You mentioned you're excited for Scream 2. Are you going to go and watch the full franchise?
I mean, I'm going to make you either way.
If you make me, I will watch Scream 2, yes.
But that's good. It's good that you're open for Scream 2 here, because we've got a big world to get into if I can get you watching the next 6 or 7 by the time we actually get to them.
It'll be less time than you watching all the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbits.
Fuck, yeah. I'm up for it, man. So on that then, so we've got characters left alive. So looking ahead to Scream 2, what do you think that's going to look like? What do you think Scream 2 is? How do you think they take this forward?
I reckon Cotton will be introduced into it as an actual character.
Okay.
Making him the killer would be way too obvious, so I reckon someone may be trying to frame him as the killer, like a copycat killer.
Do you think Scream 2 goes Ghostface again?
I assume so.
This is one where, and I knew there were sequels, but obviously knowing nothing about the sequels, I didn't know until the very end if we were actually going to find out who it was. I wasn't sure if it was going to be a case of they were free and then they just kept murdering people for 79 more films.
Like Michael Myers type thing, like he'll always get away at the end to murder more next time, won't he?
I want to be in the sequel.
I did compile a little list of just things that you might have missed, not being a horror nerd like I will, but I don't feel like I'll do the movie justice if I don't bring them up, and they're just little references that were dropped that we might have missed. There's a strong theme of Nightmare on Elm Street through this one. Obviously, one of them is Billy Loomis climbing through that window. Johnny Depp does that same thing in Nightmare on Elm Street, climbs through the window for a bit of midnight treat. Did you spot Wes Craven in this movie dressed as Freddy Krueger?
I did see someone dressed as Freddy Krueger, yeah.
The janitor in the school. So that was Wes Craven, the director, and he's literally just dressed in Freddy's clothes. So that's obviously a bit of an on-the-nose reference. This one you would not have noticed. I didn't notice until I watched Halloween again recently, and then Scream in pretty close succession. But when Casey's parents come back, so first girl that's murdered, when Casey's parents come back, the dad, I believe, says to the mum to drive down to the Mackenzies to go and get help. And in Halloween, that's exactly what Laurie Strode says to the other babysitters when Michael Myers is out. She says, drive down to the Mackenzies to get help. So there's like a literal same line from Halloween used in it. And they do that a lot. They just drop in these little things throughout the franchise. I'll bore you with that every time we do one. It's just part of that homage to like Scream is a product of all the slashers that came before. Even though it's trying to change it, it's kind of respecting what was before, but also deliver something new for the future. I call it a meta slasher because it's a slasher that's aware it's a slasher. Like the those three guys at a bar that are going to make a porn film with a real story, Wes Craven is one of those that was like, we're going to make a horror film, but it's actually going to have a plot.
The plot was good, so well done to him.
Yeah.
And a new writer as well, Kev Williamson. This was his first big writing gig, and he's managed to make a plot that 30 years later, having watched lots of other things, new viewers are still saying is a good plot. So there's definitely something to it, isn't there?
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess we'll leave it there. We've had our journey, tapped our toes into the waters of the Scream franchise, and I think we've all come off for the better, except Mark is probably going to watch it now.
I'm going to have to again now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully you enjoyed that. We will part ways here then, guys. Thanks for this journey through Scream. And next up, we are going to be watching The Breakfast Club. And I say we, I mean Mark and I are going to be watching that hit. And I know nothing about it, so I look forward to hearing about it. And I think, Amy, you're going to be our pro on that one, is that right?
Yeah, it's one that I was introduced to by my mum not very young, as a child. So yeah, it's iconic.
Nice. So we'll catch up next time when we delve into The Breakfast Club. So yeah, I'll see you later, guys.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
It's the Dead Spy Cinema Club. We see some things, but we haven't seen enough. With popcorn dreams and midnight screams, we're chasing scenes through broken beams. Neon lights in a dusty haze, urban legends lost in a maze. From silver screens to battered tapes, our love for cinema never escapes. It's the Dead Spy Cinema Club. We see some things, but we haven't seen enough. With popcorn dreams and midnight screams, we're chasing scenes through broken